What is up, guys, and welcome to ASL Week 2 Power Rankings. I am Ian, and once again, I am joined with Gran.
Yeah, what's up, guys? I'm Grant.
Without further ado, let's just jump right into our picks.
Yeah.
We both have Shadow for number 14. Why don't you talk about that?
So Shadow played AV. So honestly, there wasn't really too much to say about this game in terms it was pretty straightforward. AV controlled the game throughout, and Shadow I felt was really on the back foot the entire time. I never really felt he was kind of in a position to win. Um, and honestly, it just wasn't the best showing.
Yeah, for the most part, these rankings were really hard to decide, but for Shadow, it was a pretty unanimous decision to put him at 14, just because all the other games this week were really close, but his game was pretty much a blowout. He got 5-0'd, all the other teams kept it within a 3-0 margin or better.
Yeah.
And yeah, he just didn't have control at any point in the game. He just AZ just kind of had his way with Shadow for that entire game. Not sure whether his prep could have been better or his play, probably aspects of both, but he just kind of needs to improve on that if he wants to raise up in the levels.
Yeah.
Next up at number 13, we have a difference here. I've put in Denver Nummels, aka the Master, and you put in Malone.
Yeah.
So the reason why I put in Demaster here is because I felt like he had, once again, less control than Malone. Both games, if I recall correctly, drew on for a fair bit, but Malone had a lot more opportunities to win and was putting a lot more pressure on his opponent Hutch than Demaster was. Demaster did keep it technically closer in score, but
Yeah.
I felt like it wasn't quite as much due to the play as Cody's win cons being thunderous, requiring more sacks to really set up.
Yeah.
So that's why I've got him here instead.
Yeah. Yeah, I had Malone at number 13. Mostly just he was on the back foot for a bit, but I do see what you're saying in terms of that. Mason Mystic was Malone. If he kind of sacked the Zorik, I'm not really sure why. He did have other different plays he could have done, like going to Talonflame. Um, Instead he went to Zorik as a Talonflame. I didn't really get that play. Could have maybe helped him in the end game. I'm not really too sure if it really mattered that much, but I am on 13 there. As for Demaster, basically covered everything. I felt that he didn't really do enough to get moved up at all. Again, he didn't win. He didn't really do enough for me to get moved down either. So I just kept him in the same place as last week.
Yeah. So since we already discussed number 12, we'll just jump right into number 11. We've both got TCP here, and boy, no one would have expected TCP to drop so low after his last season's performance, but here we are, down 0-2. Why don't you talk about how TCP's been playing this season?
Well, he hasn't got off to a good start, clearly. I felt this week that his prep was kind of out of the ordinary for TCP. It didn't really seem like he really prepped too hard for Cam's team. It just he was on the back foot. He didn't have anything from Eloetta in that game. His prep for Jellicent was a little iffy. Was just pretty much the red ice, and I'm pretty sure was what beat it. And I don't know. I just felt like he didn't play to his standards that I expect from TCP. From what I've seen as well. So obviously not off to the best start, being 0-2.
Yeah, losing to the worst coach objectively from last season is not a really good look when you are the champion. Um,
Yeah.
his team didn't have any real ways to break through a mellow weather, and Cam's team is not that bulky, but TCP still didn't really seem to bring any real breakers. Like, your breaker was Regice, that's not a good look for you, and
Yeah.
it's why he lost in the end. Sure, he got some unlucky curse body procs in there, but I don't think you can really complain too much about that when your play was subpar and your prep was also subpar. I do expect TCP to jump back from this because he is a good coach, but it's just
Yeah.
off to a bad start for him.
Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of Cam, I've got Cam at number 10 here, and once again, he beat TCP, the best coach from last season, so he's off to a good start. He is 1-1 right now, but beating one of the best coaches in the season is definitely going to give you some props. Even though I feel like it was largely as well TCP not playing completely up to scratch. He played the Mellow Weather really well, so I did give him props for that. it's just really hard to move him above all the other coaches who also had really
Yeah.
good performances earlier. So that's why I still got him at 10, even though he could just as easily be all the way up to probably 5, to be honest.
Yeah. I had a TJ at 10, mostly just because, again, really hard to rate. From like 10 to 5, it was pretty even. But with TJ, I felt that he did play well. He had some cool prep with the Como being rocking helmet for the Lopunny, and the Swords Dance Mew. I think that put in a lot of work as well. But I felt that he didn't really do enough to move up over some other coaches on my list. But he didn't play bad by any stretch. It's just really hard to rate with a lot of the coaches.
And at number 9, you've got Cam here. Why don't you talk about that?
I have Cam at number 9. Again, he beat TCP, who, even though he was on and off, he's still a very good battler. And he's actually been playing pretty well if you look at the first week to now, so for this season. And he brought what he needed to do to win the game. Which, even if TCP's prep wasn't on point, with Cam's team, I feel it would be very hard to prep for and actually win. And the fact that he did a pretty decent prep with a pretty sub-average team and beat a very good battler, I think that was really impressive. And I felt it warranted being moved up a bit in power rankings.
Yeah, that makes sense. At number 9, I have Keystone. If you'll remember from last week, I had him at number 2. And so, yeah, definitely a really big jump down for him. He lost to TJ, which I ranked a fair bit higher than him because TJ's prep was really something else. I felt like Keystone did put his all into the game, and TJ did. So when you're not putting in quite as much effort as your opponent, then you should really be expecting to lose that game. So I felt like if he wants to keep up his top spots, then he needs to really show the effort that he wants to be putting in to maintain those top spots. So that's why I dropped him down.
Yeah, I have Keefster at 8, actually. A lot of the stuff is what you said. I just felt that if you look at Keefster, last week he played, I think, really well last week if you took that. So I didn't really want to drop him down too much, but yeah, he definitely didn't impress me too much this week. He got a little, I think it got a little greedy with the Kingdra at the end. I think a Kingdra at +1 could have maybe had a better chance to win him if it wasn't toxic than the Kingdra at +2. I didn't really understand that play. Again, I haven't run the calcs on that, but that's just something I picked up on. And yeah, I felt that his prep was kind of iffy. I didn't like the Zapdos set. It was kind of weird, and just didn't really have too much for the Mew either in that game.
Yeah, once again, just feeling a bit lazy in his play and all aspects of the game, which is going to drop you down. Anyway, at number 8, we've got Ian. You've got him at number 7, and he did end up beating me in one of the best coaches in the league.
Yeah.
But the aspects that you should consider that made me not put him up quite as high as I otherwise would have is that it was an extremely close 1-0, and he wouldn't have won if Blizzard had hit. So the game wasn't entirely in his hands when he did win. A lot of the other coaches that I placed above him clearly had the game plan set so that they would win, rather than relying on external factors to win the game.
Yeah.
Still, he played very well to boost him up here.
Yeah, I had him at number 7. Pretty much the exact same thing you said, because I had him a little higher last week. So I think because TCP dropped out of my top 10, it kind of put him at number 7. But yeah, he did what he needed to do to win. Yeah, he did get a little luck at the end to feel the 1-0 victory, but he kept the game really close against a really good coach. So he did what he needed to do to get the win, and in the end, in Pokemon, that's pretty much all that matters. But yeah, so I have him number 7 here.
Yeah, and I have TJ at number 7. Similar reasons that you were saying. In like his prep was really creative, and he played the game well to win it. It was quite close in the end, but he played his end game properly. He could have lost in the end if he didn't go into Snorlax and sack the Protect if the Kingdra didn't hit himself. So he knew not to take any foolish risks to save differential, and that was just clever play that was enough to boost him up a few points. Actually, I think I put him around here last week too, come to think of it, maybe 8. But yeah, he did get boosted up a little bit off winning against Keystar, so good job to him.
Yep.
At number 6, we both have Brad, and Brad lost to Susie this week, which was quite an upset.
Yeah.
He was on his meds, apparently. He was quite ill, so he's got the excuses all lined up, as do I, but regardless, he did lose, and he didn't really lose to anything. Like, he pretty much just got outplayed, and whatever external factors that caused him to get outplayed, that's still what happened. His prep wasn't really good enough to handle it. The big thing for me was that he let Coco take like 70% without when he didn't need to, which really put him on the back foot. He couldn't bring Coco into pressure anywhere near as much after taking that hit. And it was just like a few slip-ups like that that really snowballed into a big win for Susie.
Yeah. Now, same with me, Brad, as you said, taking damage on the Coco, I felt that was really unnecessary. Also, he didn't seem to have status on any Pokemon, and status would have helped him a lot in that game. Was another thing I noticed. Yeah, but he just got outplayed. He couldn't break the Walkler, and he did have the Mandibuzz, which is I think really nice at that match, but the Mandibuzz can't 1v1 the entire team, which is basically what it had to do to win that game. And yeah.
So at number 5, we both have myself here. Why don't you talk about that game?
Well, I had you at number 5 last week, and you did play really good. Yeah, you got a little unfortunate in the end of the game, so I couldn't really drop you for that because that's not really representative of skill. So I just kept you at number 5. I felt you played well enough to keep a spot, and I think you'll definitely bounce back. So, yeah.
Yeah, I dropped myself down just because I did take that loss, and the teams above me have not yet taken a loss. But things to note is that I had the triple core going down. I was, first of all, sleep deprived. Very important to note. Second of all, terrible matchup. And third of all, hacks. It's the triple core right there. No, but I'm not to make excuses, but I felt like with so many circumstances leading up to it, and same with Brad, that once again it wasn't completely indicative of skill, so I didn't want to lower myself too much.
Yeah.
So especially considering it was the closest game of the week too, so it was the closest loss from them. So that's why I've still kept myself fairly high up at number 5. But moving on to number 4, we've got a bit of difference of opinion here. I've got Cody, you've got Susie. Why don't you talk about Susie?
So Susie played really well against Brad. Brad's obviously a good player, even if he was a little off because of medication apparently. Susie did what he needed to do to win, and honestly, he just played very conservative and did the plays he needed to do to win the game. Really solid, well-played game from Susie. I have him at 4. I'm pretty sure that moved him up like 4 spots from last week, so a pretty big jump for me.
Yeah, I had Cody at number 4 because I feel like his wins have been against considerably worse opponents, like comparatively.
Yeah.
Comparatively worse, not considerably, sorry. His week 1 win was against TJ, which I've only got ranked at number 7, and last week was like number 10. And week 2 was against the Master, which is number 13. So he's played well to get those wins, but when you're playing coaches that aren't as of a high caliber as Susie did with Brad, you're not going to necessarily get quite as many props as the coaches who do play the really good opponents, especially when your wins aren't looking dominative. You've got a 2-0 twice, which is considered a close game.
I had Cody at number 3, mostly just because I liked his prep the last 2 weeks. Also, I had him a little higher than Susie last week, and I didn't really feel like bringing Susie up a little more, so I kind of kept it. But most of the time, Susie and Cody pretty similar in terms of rankings, I feel. Not really too separate apart, but I just liked the way Cody played. He hasn't really made any glaring mistakes, and he does what he needs to. He knows his win cons. He gets the game set up and wins. He's done that both the first 2 weeks. Nice prep and just really good battling. So.
Yeah, I just felt like for me, Susie beating the better coach was enough to boost him up. But going on to number 2, we both have AZ here. AZ has had the most dominative wins thus far. His first game was a 4-0 victory, and his second game was a 5-0 victory. The only reason why he's not number 1 is because, once again, he's facing not quite as strong coaches as Hutch had to fight. He's played well to get to the points, but it feels like once he gets to a point, he just kind of sweeps through. He's still making mistakes that the other coaches aren't capitalizing on quite as heavily. Yeah. So while he is making strong plays and strong prep, it's not quite as clearly shining through as it is for Hutch, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, AV, he's played really well, again, against some of the lower in the list, so not as strong a competition as Hutch, but I've been impressed with AV. He's played really well the first two games. I'd like to see what he can do versus Hutch or Brad or Ian in the future, when he gets the opportunity. But yeah, he's done what he needed to do to win. Pretty dominant win over Shadow. I don't think there's any real mistake he made other than maybe lead seeding on the obvious Jolteon stack instead of clicking sub, which I believe would have saved some differential. I'm not, if I remember correctly. Um, but yeah, a pretty solid one for AZ. Pretty much covered it with what you said.
Yeah. So at number one, we've got both got Hutch, and you can lead that discussion.
Yeah, Hutch, he won pretty dominant over
Malone.
Malone. Yeah, he played Malone. Okay, yeah. So yeah, he played pretty well. Did what he needed to do to win. And honestly, I just didn't really feel like he did anything to justify him lowering for the number one spot from the last week ranking. So I kept him number one.
Yeah, while Malone isn't considered to be one of the top coaches, the play that Malone was showing, with especially with the pressure that he was putting on with Talonflame, did really
Yeah.
show. Forced Hutch to think. It forced Hutch to show his worth. Hutch made a lot of really strong plays to put pressure on Malone's defensive core, which was the main thing that really showed through. Even if Malone wasn't playing completely up to scratch, his team, just by it existing, was enough to force Hutch to think a lot more than AZ had to think. AZ could play a lot more straightforward. Hutch had to think a lot more, and therefore he showed that he was better, which keeps his number one rank intact.
Yeah.
So, unless you have any other thoughts, that's going to wrap up week two power rankings.
Yeah. Excited for week three. Should be interesting. Some good
Yeah,
games. But yeah, see you guys
lot of good
next week.
games here. See you next time.